What's up, good people? Welcome to another edition of HBCU Sports Live. This is the HBCU Sports Podcast with Kenn Rashad. This is the live edition. It's about the first time I've actually done a live edition of this show. And I did this because we're going to have a special conversation with a good friend of mine who's doing some good things in the community. And before we bring him on, we're just going to go ahead and touch on just a couple of things, man, to kind of bring you guys up to speed on a couple of things. So I'm guessing by now, you guys may have heard of some news, and we'll just go ahead and bring this up. Not that. We'll talk about that too. So you guys may have heard or it's been brought to your attention of an incident or an episode that took place last week while I was in Atlanta, out there in them streets, literally out there in them streets. I was at David Shands' podcast summit and had a great time and taking in all the information. And on the final day of the event, I I think that was Peachtree Street, literally a few steps down. I think it's called America's Mart. And I'm not that familiar with it, but I think it's called America's Mart. And I think that's where the Atlanta Convention Center is and so forth. And caught myself going in there. And brother, before I know it, I was disoriented and blacked out in the middle of downtown Atlanta. And before I know what I come to, and I'm surrounded by Atlanta PD and paramedics attending aid to me. So I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time, man, going into detail about that. However, the full video is on the Kenn Rashad YouTube channel. And, without trying to be overly dramatic, you will witness during that video that I didn't allow them to take me to the hospital like they suggested and highly recommended that I go. And I don't know if it's something that you need to necessarily listen to, but given what I was going through at that moment and kind of given what I was going through during the week, it was something that I didn't do. And there was a reason for it. And take a few minutes to go check out the video. It's about 30 minutes long, man, but it kind of explains in detail what I was going through during that moment. And hopefully you'll get something out of it. Okay. So that's on the Kenn Rashad YouTube channel, where we talk about entrepreneurship, branding, and so forth. So that's that. So also, you guys may also be aware that, and it has nothing to do with the reasons why you don't necessarily see them on now, but, HBCU Sportsman, we've been around for almost 30 years, and we've been independent, and we have been telling stories in a way that most others either haven't or can't, or we just do it with a unique perspective. And so, this publication started off in many ways as a community. And so, given the fact that we've been able to grow and, I've been fortunate enough and blessed enough to kind of build a team, we've hit a roadblock. And so, the media businessman, especially as it relates to so-called newspapers, if you will, man, it's challenging. And so, you guys, there's a story that's published at HBCU Sports, showing how you guys can possibly support it. We are trying to raise $10,000 within the next 7 days, and all of that money goes to pay Kendrick, Jared, and Chris. And a little bit for myself. We all work, we all got families, and we've all got obligations and so forth, man. So this is one of the rare moments that I'm asking you guys to do what you can to support the channel. Now, in all honesty, we started this campaign on yesterday. And up to this point, we've raised just a bit over $200. So we're grateful for that. But I am asking personally that you guys, man, if you can, I know today is Friday, payday for a lot of you guys. So if you could take the time to go to hbcusports.com/donate, you can donate to support the channel, and who knows, you'll certainly get a chance, man, to allow us to continue reporting the stories that most others won't. and we can continue to provide you with fresh and updated content from a perspective not only about HBCU sports, but from journalists who also attended HBCUs and so forth, man. So, if you would be so kind to go ahead and do that. And you guys may also notice, look, man, we have also got, we super chats are available. And so we've got a goal right now to get 10 before we get out of here within the next next hour. So, hey, man, super chats would be greatly appreciated. And, you'd be surprised, man. Every little bit helps. And so, like I said, man, let's go ahead and support this effort. And let's keep the longest running digital HBCU digital platform on the internet going on for, who knows, another 30 years, right? All right. And then finally, you guys know I got a book, right? HBCU Sports 101, A Guide to Understanding Black College Athletics. Look, man, you guys have shown me nothing but love. And I really appreciate the support for this. My reasons for writing this book were one, and I've said this on a couple of platforms that I've been on, was one, there just simply weren't enough books out there about HBCUs. That's one thing. There are not a lot of books out there. And the ones that were written by individuals who didn't necessarily attend HBCUs. Not all of them, but there were like some folks who wrote books about HBCUs who went to like Princeton and to the University of North Carolina. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I'm sure that those books were written with the intent on trying to celebrate HBCU and HBCU cultures and so forth. But this book, I believe, kind of takes it from a different perspective. As a person who not only attended an HBCU, but actually grew up in an HBCU community, as some of you probably already know. So, as I indicated in the book, man, my mother graduated from Grambling High School. My grandparents worked on Grambling's campus. My aunts and uncles are from Grambling, Louisiana. And so I went to school in Grambling first and middle school. Grambling is like, when I tell you it was in our DNA, man, it is all in my DNA. My great-grandfather was a night watchman on Grambling's campus. So I think you will find that I will tell stories about this in this book from a different perspective. And I think, man, that you guys hopefully will find some enjoyment in it. And yeah, that's right. That's right, Silas. Princeton. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I did some research, and there was actually someone, man, who did a book or co-authored a book, and that person, if I'm not mistaken, went to Princeton. I know there was one who definitely went to the University of North Carolina. They were Black, but I'm just simply saying. But anyway, that's beside the point. So, but yeah, man. So it's been amazing. The people there have been some people who obviously who've read the book, and they reached out to me and have talked about the possibility of getting together in the future and so forth. So I find that somewhat a blessing. So like I said, man, they enjoyed the book. Go out and enjoy the book. You can go to KennRashad.com and buy the book. Now, look, let me say this, man. You can still get a signed copy, okay? But do know that the standard edition is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart.com, and so forth. That's the standard edition for $21.99. However, if you want a signed edition, I am only sending out premium editions. Now, these books are thicker. They're on thicker paper, better. They're heavier. But, your boy, man, I got things to do. And signing books all day long is not one of those things that I exactly want to do. So I guess to a certain degree, I say, look, if you want me to sign the book, you're going to have to make it worth my time. And doggone it, you guys have been making it worth my time, because the orders are still coming in for $30 books. And so I'm going to be going to the post office after I'm done with this show so I can send the books out. So again, thank you all, man. I am so blessed. Continue to support me. Continue to support this operation. And, we'll continue to do what we can, man, to do good works for you as well. So with that said, we're going to bring my special guest to the stage. This brother here, man, needs... My man, John Grant. What's up, brother?
How you doing, my friend? I heard you talking about the book, and I wanted you to know, as you have, I got one of your signed copies. And for those that are certainly interested, I recommend this. This is a fantastic read. As you can see, I've got my bookmarker in. I'm still in the process of reading.
Yeah, man.
Good work, my friend. Good work.
Man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. I wasn't expecting that. My man, John Grant. So, John, for those of you who don't know, John Grant is the executive director of the MEAC SWAC Challenge, as well as the Celebration Bowl in partnership with ESPN Events. John, I think it's safe to say that week 0 of the college football season is, it's just days away. And we already know about the matchups, Southern University versus North Carolina and so forth, or North Carolina Central and so forth. But one of the things that I really wanted to touch on, and as I told you this, it's not so much the matchup in and of itself, but I guess it's the work that goes behind creating these matchups. Now, for those that may not be aware, and feel free to correct me wherever I may be wrong, the MEAC SWAC Challenge, as well as the Celebration Bowl, is a partnership between ESPN Events, the MEAC, as well as the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Okay. So just kind of give me some idea as it relates specifically to this particular event, the MEAC SWAC Challenge. How does one go about creating these matchups with, and from what we've seen, they're done like years in advance. So, because we've got Southern and North Carolina Central this year, who is it next year?
Next year, we have Alabama A&M and Howard.
Alabama A&M and Howard. Oh,
that's correct. Okay. And then following that, we have South Carolina State and Alabama State.
Okay. So talk about is that a difficult process, especially as it relates to athletic directors and them sometimes not even knowing a year in advance what their actual football schedule is going to be like? Talk about the complexities of in creating an event, especially preseason with the MEAC SWAC Challenge and all of the dynamics that go along with that.
Well, first, let me say thank you for having me on here, Ken.
Yeah, brother.
I'm a big fan of your show and all of the work that you guys do, and certainly a big supporter of that. And I am going to be going to the site to make my donation to support you. So, this is the kind of thing that we have to do to keep our platforms like yours, on the air and working and telling the stories on behalf of our HBCU. So congratulations to you. You're correct in the fact that a little bit of this is luck. The good thing about the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge being in week 0 is not as difficult. It hasn't been as difficult in terms of the scheduling, because up until the recent change that FCS school conferences can now schedule and play in week 0 regularly. Prior to that, you had to have an exemption from the NCAA, and your game had to be nationally broadcast. That's the requirement. It had to be a nationally broadcast game. And so we've been working quite a bit with the conferences, and certainly want to give my shout out to Commissioner Steele and Commissioner McClellan, great partners with us and have worked with us. Just delighted to be partnered with them. But we don't have Ken a shortage of teams that want to play in the game. That's a good question. We reach out, haven't had anyone yet to say no, and they have a number that reach out to say, hey, can we get in, or when can we get back? But it takes some effort. We look at a number of factors for success. We look at the regionalization of the game. We want to make sure that fans can get here. So, within at least a 6-hour drive is sort of what we really look at typically. Some it may be outside of that, but the next thing we look at is, what the matchup looks like. We go back and we look at history in the matchups. The one that we have this year, fortunately, when we looked at it, those schools have not played. They've only played once, and they played in 2006 when North Carolina Central was a Division II school. They went down to Baton Rouge and eked out a win against.
I remember that. I remember that game very well. That team was, if I'm not mistaken, was led by one Rod Broadway.
That's correct. That is correct. And so this is and then the connection of the coaches, because Trey Oliver having coached at Southern, so it looked like it made would make a good matchup, not knowing that this year, because this matchup was put together back in 2021. So now not knowing that how both teams will be performing this year makes it even better. So we go through that sort of process. Like last year we had Norfolk State and Florida A&M. Granted, Florida A&M used to be in the MEAC conference, but Norfolk State had not been to Atlanta that we could find. They had not played here in even recent times. So it was good to bring them in against someone like FAMU. That's
right.
This is a mainstay for them, but also they had two great marching bands. So it was good to put that together here. So that's sort of what we look at, Ken. And it's a process that we look at. We are now looking at 2030. So we're booked through 2029 right
2029.
Yes.
Can you provide any, because you said next year it's Alabama, A&M, and
Howard.
That's in 26, right?
That's 26.
What 27?
27 is Alabama State and South Carolina State. What about 28? And then we have Jackson State and Norfolk State.
Okay.
And we're working, like I said, right now we're working on 2030.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned something, and I respect the fact that you say this, because I've always thought it, and obviously sometimes I don't necessarily want to go by what I think, but you kind of go by based on what you see. You mentioned something about the regionality of where these teams are located. So when you look at the SWAC and the MEAC footprint with respect to, say, the SWAC, which obviously runs from the state of Florida all the way to Texas, what does this say? Because right now we've got teams that are representing the state of Louisiana and Southern and obviously North Carolina. So, and I'm not saying this to say that this would never happen, but what does this say for, say, schools like in Texas, say Texas Southern and Prairie View, or maybe even a school like Delaware State, with respect to the regionalization of how this all works? I mean, I'm not saying that it'll never happen, but I mean, is it safe to assume that because of where those schools are located and maybe where those respective fan bases will have to travel from, that maybe attendance, I don't know. I mean, is that something that is considered per se?
Well, we do consider all of that. I mean, you want to have created a property, no matter where it is, that where fans can really get to it. And that's why, you take a game like the State Fair Classic. And why it can be so successful where it is, because of the proximity between for Grambling and for Prairie View, that fans can get there pretty well. The majority of fans, and if and that includes alumni as well as fans, are easy to get to. And that's why when you look at also, Ken, look at the history of our classic games and how those rivalries matched up, and what made them, in terms of, I'm only speaking attendance right now, because there is another layer to this, but from an attendance point of view, what makes them really great: Bayou Classic, 2 Louisiana schools. You have Magic City Classic, 2 Alabama schools. And you can look at whether you got Boombox Classic, Jackson and Southern, the proximity is what really makes them successful. And even when you look at not just HBCUs, but your PWI rival games, all happening around Thanksgiving.
Right.
Alabama and Auburn, you can go down the list, for those. Texas and Oklahoma. Proximity, regional proximity, those type of games make it easy and fun and connected for fans.
We're joined by Executive Director John Grant of the MEAC SWAC Challenge. And for those of you, in the chat, if you guys have questions, this is live. So if you guys have a question that you think you might want me to ask John, feel free to do so, because there's so many comments. You guys put a Q in the comment before you ask your question, so I'll know that that's a question that you'd like for me to ask. So, John, let's talk about this particular time and where we are right now with NIL being what it is, transfer portal being what it is, and more so kind of like the newfound pressures, if you will, that many of the schools within these respective conferences are facing right now. Not that this necessarily impacts you, in any particular way? Because obviously the current. So let me ask. The current agreement right now, that's separate. The MEAC SWAC Challenge agreement is separate from the Celebration Bowl, correct? Is that two separate things?
That is correct.
Okay. The current agreement that we have in place right now with the MEAC SWAC Challenge, when does that run through? How far does that run?
Both of them expire in 2026.
In 2026. Okay. Given where we are right now with the pressures, is it safe to assume that when contract negotiations resume, whenever that is it likely that many of the challenges that these schools are facing right now might likely factor that into the payouts in which they might expect to continue this partnership?
That's a tough question for me to answer. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, it was kind of be like me putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
So I know that, this current climate includes, a lot of pressures in a lot of different ways. I think we have really, from our side, always been pretty aggressive in what we do, because we bring not only, a direct cash payout, but we're also bringing a huge platform which can be monetized by the institutions as well, which is really the next phase for us, Ken. This year you have more HBCU games been televised than ever in history. The key now for us, because we have something that's grown and it's relatively new for us, is how to take the media platforms and monetize them, because basically what you have is a 3.5-hour commercial for your institution. And, any business that is in business wants to take that 3.5-hour commercial and monetize it to grow revenue, whether that revenue is in direct contributions to the institution, whether it's in growing revenue, meaning you're growing student applications and interest in your university, because those are the two real revenue streams for a university. You're either getting donations and support and corporate sponsorships. You're getting as well as revenue from your student base. So the more you can grow that, then that is where really a lot of the revenue is in your student body growth as well. So figuring out how, and it's not anything new. I mean, the reason that, let me give you an example of a real statistic. So the Drake University did a study probably back in 2018, I believe, if I'm correct. And they looked at the return on investment for athletics to Division I, and they were really talking FBS, Division I athletics, the return of investment of athletics to institutions. One example they gave that just really stuck with me in the presentation, excellent presentation, a lot of good data, but they talked about when Nick Saban came to the University of Alabama, 27% of Alabama's incoming freshman class were out-of-state students, paying 2.5 times more than in-state students.
27%?
27%. By 2016, he had won 3 national championships, which meant Alabama was on TV regularly. By 2016, 63% of their incoming freshman class were out-of-state students,
wow,
paying 2.5 times more than in-state students. So what was happening is the university put into place a mechanism to monetize the visibility of the university. Now, 63% paying 2.5 times more. So they didn't just, we're on TV for TV's sake and just hope that something would happen. What they did was have a strategy and put an effective strategy in place that was able to shift their revenue model, meaning in-state versus out-of-state. And then they also, because by the time Nick Saban left, the University of Alabama's student population had grown by over 15,000. So there was a strategy in place utilizing the athletic platform and utilizing, from a business perspective, the value of television to athletics because those 3.5 hour commercials that they were getting every single week allowed them to put strategies in place that really rooted in communication, because you got to constantly be reaching out to people and reaching out and effectively applying your strategic model against a revenue growth. And so it's simple and it works, but you have to be intentional about it. You can't just hope that something's going to happen. You have to be specific and strategic about making it happen.
Right. And then that's like you said, an excellent example, because we've seen similar examples of this take place with schools in various other areas. Like, for instance, you mentioned that. I remember years ago when Butler University made its run in the NCAA final. I think they made it to the finals and didn't necessarily win a national championship. But I think there was a report that was published somewhere that says something that Butler had generated roughly I don't want to put a number out there, but it was literally millions and millions of dollars of free publicity and national advertising as a result of that championship run. Enrollment had applications had increased, enrollment had increased, and every kind of ancillary financial benefit for the university, for the financially speaking, for that university also increased. So that point is excellent. And I'm guessing, and again, so this isn't anything new. So with that said, as it relates to this particular space and with this particular event, given, and as you probably, I don't know if you got that apart, but we all probably know that with the untimely demise of George Floyd, it appeared that given the reaction to that when it happened, there had become this newfound appreciation for HBCUs, in which now corporate America wanted to be involved with it. Based upon your years that you've been working with this event, have you seen kind of like a spring in, say, attention in which corporations are now coming to you with the respect of maybe trying to sponsor this particular event? I mean, has it made your job easier? Or, I mean, is it still, tell me if there's been any kind of a flux of business opportunities as a result of that particular social event.
Great question, because you're right at the inflection point with George Floyd did spur a lot of things around the country. You had a lot of commitments made by companies that they were going to be spending money in Black-owned business and minority businesses, et cetera, et cetera. But we're also seeing today how the pendulum swings. It swung that way, but recognizing would realize it would swing back. And that's what's happening today. Now, as far as the question directly to us, our focus, Ken, is around content creation. See, we're not putting on a football game. We're creating content. Keeping in mind, this is owned by a media company.
Right.
ESPN, which has a division called ESPN Events. And that division operates over 37 sporting properties on behalf of the network to fill network time. So this is all a content play. As a result of that, Ken, that's how we have approached what we do, and really studying and understanding the power that media has, and why we had the conversation earlier about monetizing the platform and the value around that. You mentioned something when you talked about Butler. Well, I can tell you that just last year, South Carolina State and Jackson State, participating in the Celebration Bowl, each received over $6 million worth of media value. Now, the question is, what do you do with that? And I take my hat off to, Ashley Robinson down at Jackson State, who is doing a fantastic job of doing just that, monetizing the exposure value that Jackson State has received. And I do the same thing down at over at South Carolina State, because they have done a fantastic job in also doing the same thing. Using the virtue of being on the platform and on the stage. You think about it, the Celebration Bowl is by far. There's no other HBCU game even close in terms of total live audience. As a matter of fact, it's more than many of the big ones all combined. If you put them all together, nothing even comes close to what the bowl game presents in terms of viewership, impression value, dollars. I mean, we're returning some $30 million of impression value to the title sponsor. So taking all of that and getting to the answer to your question, looking at it from a business perspective, our total focus is how are we, from we looking at sponsorship, how are we creating value for our partners? So and not everyone we accept as a sponsor. It has to align, the values have to align with what our values are. And we also have to know that we can provide the right return on investment against the KPIs they're looking for. And so we're not interested in one who just wants to hang out a shingle and say, oh, I support HBCU. That's not of interest to us. Because first, it's short-lived.
Right.
Secondly, it makes it impossible for us to give an appropriate ROI from a business value proposition. And that's what we're looking for. When you're able to do that, then you can create long-term growing relationships. And that's how we approach what we do. A big part of that is that we do have media. And so that we leverage the how we deliver the media value and impressions to our partners and make sure it's incorporated in certain ways. Because not every partner, for instance, will come and they have media buys in their package, but we're able to do things like position their brands in certain ways so that their brand has exposure in that. So I'd say to any athletic director, if you got a stadium and your games are televised, you need to walk into your stadium and take a really good look around, because I can assure you, I can pretty much guarantee you that there are spaces that can be sold for sponsor visibility that you can monetize, just blank wall space in your stadium. I'll say another thing, Ken, we're looking at value and the business proposition. NCAA just passed another rule this year that schools can have corporate logos on your field.
Now, so you know what? It's funny you said that, because I think I remember reading that somewhere, and then I started thinking, I'm like, but haven't we seen that? But
you do it in bold. It was restricted to postseason.
Postseason, okay, gotcha. Okay.
So
now you're talking about regular season.
In regular season.
Wow.
So so now you can go regular season. So what an opportunity. You're having televised games rather than, and oftentimes what our institutions do, and there's nothing wrong with this, but just taking a look at it, we will put names on the field, honorary and named on the field. And prior to, with this change, that made sense. But today that doesn't make sense.
Right.
What makes sense is if you want to name a field, put the name in the periphery somewhere in the perimeter of the field, and you take that real estate that's at the 20s, and you sell it. You can put one on each side if you do it that way. To give you an example, I was talking to one partner whose name I won't call, but who had received a proposal from a major university here in Georgia, whose name I won't call, but who gave them a proposal to sell them one logo on the field for their season. One. Okay. $1.3 million. For just one. Just for one. And I'm not saying the numbers are like that for us. I mean, but the point is, if you could do that and get $100,000 for one, I mean, that's revenue, that's real estate that we can look at how we monetize. So everything now has to be up for review. And why do I say that? Because I'm going to take it back to a question you asked me about when agreements end and will there be more, et cetera, et cetera. Look, at the end of the day, you can't get it all from one place. Right. What you do is take what you get from that place, and what we again providing you is media exposure what do you do with that? Because you can monetize that with a lot more than than ESPN. I say but that ESPN can pay. Remember, I just mentioned Jackson State, South Carolina State, almost $6 million.
$6 million. Yeah.
Now take that and turn around and monetize it over a longer term. The business of college athletics changes for us now that television is involved, and our asset pool changes now because now every spot in your stadium has value. I would probably tell you, won't be long before they change. Right now, you can't put any patch on a corporate patch. You can put like your
conference affiliation,
the conference affiliation.
Right. You still can't put a corporate patch on there yet?
No, only
so
only in postseason.
Okay, so right now we see teams with conferences, and we'll even maybe see the corporate logo of the actual brand that provided that uniform, right?
You can see that by the uniform. But now I'm talking about in the future. This doesn't exist today, but I would not be surprised in the future if it doesn't change, that you can see a Ford logo on a Grambling uniform.
Wow.
You can't do that today, but every institution and conference is looking for ways to help generate and unlock revenue opportunities. And a lot of those around, how do I take a brand? Like I said, I put that logo on a jersey of a company and I'm on television. I'm creating impression value, which is literally an advertisement for 3.5 hours for a company, but I'm able to now monetize that real estate. You're seeing it in the professional leagues right now, whether in NBA, WNBA,
especially in the WNBA, yeah.
Major League Baseball, they are all now. You can put a corporate patch on your uniform. I see that coming to college, and when it does, we need to be ready and not just wait for it. We need to be preparing ourselves for that, because the value, again, lies in the fact that these games are broadcasted. Finally, my final statement on this, and what I really love about what Commissioner McClellan has done with SWAC TV.
SWAC TV, yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Creating real estate, creating a platform, and building that's going to help his member institution as they build their audience. And it's going to take a little time. So you got to realize that you in this space, it doesn't happen overnight just because you turn it on and all of a sudden a lot of people are there. But 44, maybe, if I recall, 43, 44 games of the SWAC are going to be on SWAC TV.
Yep.
So he's going to be able to pull an audience there. And what that does, it pulls advertisers, a platform for that as it grows. And by doing that, then universities have to be ready. Just like I said, look around in your stadium. What blank spaces do I have, especially on the visitor side, where the cameras are shooting? If I got blank real estate, I'm selling it to corporate sponsors. If I have real estate on my field, I'm selling it because I now have the opportunity to put logos and up to 2 on my field. And so now if you have a name on the field with this change, does it really make sense to have that name there, which we are honoring people, rightfully so. I support that. But you can put the name in the, in the white space of the end zones or something. You still can do that. But that place, the 20s,
that's
now valuable real estate.
Right. Yeah. We had a question here, John. I think you may have kind of answered this. Person says, "What are the values of the MEAC SWAC Challenge?" And I guess I'm thinking maybe it's more so. I guess with respect to, I'm thinking maybe alignment. What when we're talking about alignment with the MEAC SWAC Challenge with respect to some of these partners, what exactly is it that you're looking for that makes a potential partner worthy of being a partner of the MEAC SWAC Challenge or even the Celebration Bowl?
Well, first we look for what their brand values are. Okay. That's number one. Number two, we look at who their consumers are and are their sincere interest in penetrating or extending into our consumer market in sincere ways? Number 2, 3, what are they doing beyond just participating? What are their engagements in the community, and what other investments are they making to support those things that have value to us, which is really a historically Black college and universities? Are you making investments in other places and around other programming? Because we want to use this to highlight that as well. And then we want to look at, because, you know, for us, we're not interested as much in dating. We want to get married. So I'm not looking for one and dones.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you here today, when we have a conversation, that's what we do. And then the other thing that we do, Ken, is everything for us is bundled together. So if you're going to be in the Celebration Bowl, you're going to be a sponsor. It's packaged together, as well as now, of course, our band of the year,
Band of
where
the year,
Red
yeah.
Lobster is the title sponsor of that. But Red Lobster also, they're the title sponsor of the Band of the Year, but they're also a sponsor in Celebration this year. And we, you know, they came on last year and have extended that agreement to for that title sponsorship for that event, and are going to be going in hard this year and beyond into really building their connection to the African American community. And I'll say this as a plug for them. If you haven't been to Red Lobster, you should. That seafood boil that they're promoting, I've had it more than once. It's good. And it was created, again, supporting you know, the brother that's the CEO. He has a sincere commitment. He has been very public about his commitment to really trying to do more with HBCUs, and so we support that.
You mentioned earlier about the job that Ashley Robinson is doing at Jackson State, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. In fact, he was named HBCU Sports as Athletic Director of the Year, and deservingly so. And you also talked about the steps that the SWAC is making with respect to SWAC TV and making sure that it leverages media and so forth, and putting value in that. Based upon what you've witnessed in some of the other schools that you've talked to, and I understand, I guess primarily you work pretty much with individuals within the SWAC and MEAC, but talk about the greater landscape. I mean, what about like schools at the Division II level? So, based upon where we are right now, do you see those institutions at the D2 level kind of like trying to leverage the opportunities that may be in front of them?
That's a very good question. I don't just deal with the Division I.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. Okay.
No. I mean, when I say I deal with ESPN, is televising games for the CIAA and the SIAC.
Great point.
And I go and have been since, you know, I've been in this role, attending and supporting and engaging and talking to and sharing the same message you're hearing me share today, and the same messages, conversations we have with Commissioner Steele, who's doing a wonderful job at the MEAC. And I want to give a plug for them, because, you know, often we hear these words about, well, is the MEAC going to be around? The MEAC is going to be around. It's a solid conference. The commitment that she has from the chancellors and presidents, and even from their board chairs, because we have an opportunity to engage with them. They come to the Celebration Bowl, and we have opportunity to engage with them to make sure that they know the value of this. But the Division II schools, we deal with them also with the Band of the Year, because there are 2 tracks.
That's right.
You're
absolutely right. Yep,
and we intentionally did that to create a platform a platform for them as well. But with that, the answer to your question is yes, we're having the same conversations. We're talking to presidents and chancellors. We're talking to athletic directors. We're giving them the same message that we were giving you, just that we just gave you and your listeners today about, hey, making sure you monetize assets that you have that you maybe not, that weren't as valuable before because you didn't have television, that have value now. And having, I just had a real long conversation this week with Commissioner Holloman from the SIAC, talking about these very things and how to make sure we are giving him the tools that he can educate his chancellors and presidents on this new position we're in. Because yes, NIL has changed some things. Transfer portal has changed things. It's changed it for everyone.
Yeah.
So, some people, those that are going to survive have the ability to adjust. We've always been an adjustable people.
Amen.
We've always had to ebb and flow. Some others it may challenge them a little bit more, but as I was telling a coach the other day, is it different? Yes. Having a player come, it's just my opinion, today and stay for 4 years, especially a great player, is probably going to be a little bit difficult.
Yeah.
Because he or she will have the opportunity to go and to monetize their value. Good for them.
Right.
As long as they see a path forward to the objective, which is number one, that you finish with your degree, and number two, that if in monetizing your value, you're able to position yourself for something after sports, and you can do something with your family. So that means the value that we have, that HBCUs has, is you have to come up with something. So I think the cultural values that our schools have are second to none. You can't get that anywhere outside of what we are. That means something to a kid.
Yeah.
And if I can supplement that with something, then I don't have to pay you as much, because you're not giving up as much.
Right.
You have to give up a lot to leave. And I know you went to Grambling, but you have to give up a lot to leave Grambling to go to LSU.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just not the same. And there's nothing wrong with, say, being there, but you got to know there's a trade-off.
Yeah, there's a sacrifice.
There is a sacrifice in that, and as long as you're willing to pay that price, and you're going to play, you don't want to go there, get paid money to sit on the bench.
Right.
So
let me ask you this, and look, guys, for you guys out there in the chat now, look, we've got one super chat so far, man, and I put a goal of 10. And we're running out of time. So I'm asking you guys right now to take an opportunity, man, provide the super chats, support the platform, and let's keep this thing going. John, I'd be remiss, man, because we see the MEAC SWAC Challenge, we see the Celebration Bowl, and we see John Grant, the face. And I see somebody early in the comments said, John Grant making rounds. But I don't know if they really know a whole lot about John Grant, the man. So look, man, I know you're no stranger to this, because before, people may not realize, before the MEAC SWAC Challenge, before the Celebration Bowl, you was doing this in Atlanta with the 100 Black Men, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Correct. How
does one get into this business, man? Talk about your start. We won't tell your story a little bit. You an HBCU grad too, right? If I'm not mistaken, right?
North Carolina A&T.
That's what I thought. What led you to get into this space, man?
I stumbled into it. I studied engineering, industrial engineering. But I haven't worked in that field a day, because after school I went to work in transportation, which resulted from me having a part-time job that I had, working while in school. And once the opportunity came available to go full time, they brought me on to run the night operation in this air freight company.
Right.
And so I was doing that at night, and that moved me from I'll tell you one little story. So once I was working there for a while, I sat down and wrote a letter to the CEO of the company, headquartered in Seattle, Washington, company at that time called Airborne Freight. And I wrote him a letter introducing myself, and told him hey, this is what my goals are, and that someday I'm going to have your job. That was my letter.
Wow.
I don't know. Sometime later, Ken, one of the vice presidents out of Atlanta, came to our office. I was in Greensboro at the time. Came to the office, and he. I remember when he came in, I didn't know who he was, but I heard him say, "I'm here to see meet a John Grant." Man, I thought I was in trouble. But this guy came in, and he had this. He said, "Did you send this?" We sat down, introduced, very nice, pleasure. He said, "Did you send this letter?" Yes, I did. He said, "I had to come and meet with you. CEO of the company had sent the letter down to him because it was his region. Long story short, from that, shortly after that, I got promoted into Greenville, South Carolina. Was running the entire operation there. It was a small operation, but hey, at 24 years old, I guess I might have been, I'm running an operation that was generating probably about $40 million for the company. And after that, I ended up in Atlanta, running the operation here. And that's when I joined the 100 Black Men, met some people. There's a story behind that, but it's too long to tell. And was in the 100 and was on the board of directors actually when we hired Spencer Stewart search firm to do a national search for an executive. And one of my mentors on the board, his name was Dr. Ozell Sutton. He was the regional head for the U.S. Office of Civil Rights based here in Atlanta. And civil rights legend. I mean, he was from Little Rock, Arkansas, did a lot in the space, but he asked me to put my name in, Ken, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that because what I was doing was paying. At that time, had been here in Atlanta. I had been here probably about 6 years. Was now the district manager for sales for Airborne. And so I had a sales staff and I was doing all that and really engaged in the community. So he asked me to do that. I told him no. Several times he did, but Dr. Sutton called me every day for a month, every single day. Put your name in.
Wow.
Not doing it. So finally I did it just to get him to stop calling me. Long story short, we go through the process. We had 93 candidates from around the country. When it came down to 2, I remember the day that the person at the search firm called me and said, hey, Mr. Grant, we just want to let you know we've narrowed it down to 2 and you're one of 2.
Wow.
And my response was, excuse my language, oh shit, this wasn't supposed to go this far. So I got on the phone and called my mentor, Dr. Sutton, and said, look, they told me, but I'm letting you know I'm pulling my name out. I didn't want it to do this. And within about an hour, I got a call from Ambassador Young.
What?
Who asked me to meet him for lunch the next day here at the World Trade Club, which I did.
Just for clarification, when you say Ambassador Young,
Ambassador Andrew Young.
Andrew Young. Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, go ahead.
Ambassador Andrew, who was also a member of the 100.
Right.
Black Men. So I met him for lunch and for an hour and 15 minutes. So I got there a little early. He walked in, sat down, and for about an hour and 15 minutes, he talked to me about reluctant leadership. He never asked me about the job, never asked me what I wanted to do, never asked me any of that. He told his story growing up in Louisiana, which many of us have heard. He didn't want to go to Howard. His father had gone to send him there. He didn't want to be a part of the civil rights movement. It's what he told me, and how he was pushed into that. He did not want to run for Congress here. He was pushed into that. How when President Carter asked him to be the ambassador to the United Nations, he literally said, hey, he didn't want to do that, but he was pushed into it. And there's a story behind that I won't share, but he was pushed into it.
We'll talk about it offline.
and the same thing when he was mayor of Atlanta, etc. At the end of all of that, he told the story and he talked about the people along the way, the people that believed in him and, pushed him into doing these things. But he said to me at the end, which was the changing statement for me, he said, John, in everyone's life, you will move from success to significance. And the sooner you get there, the more rewarding your life will be. Now I have to go. And he got up and left.
Wow. Left
me sitting there, going to myself, what just happened? But that was the thing that pushed me to leave my job that was paying way more than I was going to make to take the position at the 100. And the statement he made was true, that in everyone's life, you will move from success to significance. And the sooner you get there, the more rewarding your life will be. And that change was a change for me that put me on a path that I had never planned to be on, but it led me into running the Atlanta Football Classic, and that was God working, because God was preparing me for this. And so I ran that. We were hugely successful with it until I got a call one day, and I know the story's a little long, but you.
Hey man, I asked. No, this is a conversation with John Grant. So look, man, I was very intentional with the thumbnail that I put out there, because you look, there's going to be plenty of talk about the MEAC SWAC challenge, okay? Yeah. But this is about telling the story of this is my show. So I profile you for not only what you're doing, but what you've done to get to this point. So no, man, go ahead and tell your story.
Thank you for that. So one day I'm in my office at the 100 Black Men, and I get a call from Rich McKay, who was the president of the Atlanta Falcons. He asked me, if we had a relationship, because again, we were doing the Atlanta Football Classic in the Georgia Dome. The Falcons were a big supporter, and we had developed a relationship over the time. And he asked me, had I heard from ESPN? I told him no. He said, well, they just left my office and they're wanting to do a bowl game in Atlanta, but I told them they need to talk to you. Okay. That same afternoon, I get a call from Carl Atkins, who's the general manager of the Georgia Dome, to say, hey, John, ESPN just left here. They're trying to do a bowl game in Atlanta, but I told them they have to talk to you because we're doing the Atlanta Football Classic. And I'm not going to do anything that's going to compete with you. So I have to talk to you. Okay. That again, the next morning I got a call from John Stevenson, who ran the College Football Hall of Fame, to say, hey man, ESPN was here and they're talking about wanting to do a bowl game in Atlanta. They want to do some stuff at the Hall of Fame, but I told them they have to talk to you. So God's pointing all these arrows back to me on something that I didn't know anything about. Then after that, I get a call from Commissioner Dennis Thomas, who said, hey, will you take a meeting with ESPN? They want to do, we're talking to them about doing this bowl game, but everyone they've talked to brought up your name. So will you meet with them? Okay. So we took a meeting. He was at the meeting along with Dewar Sharp, who's then commissioner of the SWAC, Pete Durzis, who was head of ESPN events, and some other staff people from ESPN, and me.
Yeah.
We had a meeting about what they wanted to do, etc., and a proposal they put to us that I took back to my board. To my organization, and kind of filled them in on that. So along the way, as we're having these conversations, Ken, this happened in February. By about April, they had said, never forget this, sitting at McCormick and Smith here next to the CNN Center with Pete Durzis, who was in town. We were talking about stuff. He said, look, why don't you come work with us? And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm okay where I am. I'm happy doing what I'm doing, etc. I want to see what you guys and want to support what you're trying to do for HBCUs, but I'm happy. So that went by. Another time he made me another offer. Phone rings again. It says, hey, why don't you make them an offer? And that was again, Commissioner Thomas said, why don't you make them an offer? Because we can't do this without you. Make them an offer. Which I did. I just wrote down some things that, for me, I thought were ridiculous. They were not going to say yes to it because I wasn't trying to do it anyway. And then May the 27th, 2015, I'm in Hilton Head on vacation, and at exactly 12 noon, I get an offer letter from ESPN with the stuff that I had outlined. At that point, that's how I got into this. Now, it wasn't my intent. God always has a plan. When you watch the journey that you have, he knew my passions for around HBCU. He put me in a position to learn how to do this. And while I was in that space at the Atlanta Football Classic, I went down to Miami to meet with Keith Tribble, who was running the Orange Bowl at that time, African-American brother there. And he taught me the insides of how bowls work. That was long before this other bowl even came up. But he opened the books up for me and let me see how everything was structured. And I owe him my gratitude to this day, because I had no idea that I'd be in this business running a bowl game. But he gave me the inside look and became a kind of a mentor to me. I'm trying to just grow the Atlanta Football Classic to be bowl-like,
Yeah.
In its presentation and doing all of that. But he taught me how the business is structured. And so when the opportunity came, I already had a notebook of things of how to do this. And so I started with ESPN in August, and it was just me by myself. I didn't even have a laptop, no email address, and I had 109 days to get the Celebration Bowl off the ground. And God is again good. He never will put you in a position that you and not give you all the tools that you need if you have faith and believe. Was I scared at times? Absolutely. Was it difficult at times? Yes, because it was a new bowl game. I'm out here pounding the streets of sponsors. And it's always difficult when you have something new for the first time. But again, God is good. In November, I get a phone call about, hey, there's a company called organization, the Air Force Reserves is interested in title sponsoring something, blah, blah, blah. And would you be interested in that title sponsor? Absolutely. So I then go online and look up the Air Force Reserve. Turns out that they were headquartered in Warner Robins, Georgia. Well, when I was in transportation and sales, Warner Robins Air Force Base was one of my clients. Got a lot of business out of that base, but never knew that the Air Force Reserve was there. Now, tell you how this story gets even better, how God works. A year before that, one of the members on my board at the 100, his name was William T. Thompson. T. Thompson had just taken a position as the CEO of the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. So he called me up and said, hey, man, I want you to come play in this golf tournament with me up at Chateau Alon. And Ken, that morning, it was raining cats and dogs. I thought it wasn't going to happen. And I called him up and he said, hey, it's not raining here. So I speed up there to get there. And I'm playing golf with him and two Air Force generals. We had a ball. Turns out when I looked up the Air Force Reserve, guess who the commanding officer of the Air Force Reserve was?
Who?
One of the guys that I played golf with, General Haddad.
Wow.
We had spent the day together. So I get on the phone. I call my guy, T, and said, T, you would not believe this. I told him the story. He gets on the phone, calls General Haddad, and puts the three of them on the phone together. That's how the Air Force Reserve became the title sponsor. At that point, that's when he made his decision. This is what we're going to do.
I guess I need to learn how to play golf. Because I don't know how to play golf
for a long time. Yeah. But so that's really that's the story, you know, and that's how the Celebration Bowl came, our first year.
Right. So how did because and correct me if I'm wrong, because the MEAC SWAC Challenge was already a thing prior to that. Correct. So how did how did that connection, because now you're over both, obviously. So kind of explain how that connection came to be.
Again, we started in 2015, and I had been down to the MEAC SWAC Challenge. It was in Orlando a few times, just supporting because FAMU was in it, and I went down there with them. Southern was in it, and we had Southern in the Atlanta Football Classic. So I went down supporting them, and it was in Orlando. The company, once the Celebration Bowl started, the MEAC SWAC Challenge started out as a bowl experience at the beginning of the season.
Right.
It was 3 or 4 days of events, just like a bowl. And it was at the start of the season.
Right.
So when the Celebration Bowl was launched after years at 2016, ESPN moved it out of Orlando and went to campuses. Went to Bethune-Cookman, and then it went to Southern. And at that point, it was tough because there weren't any sponsors at that point. It was struggling to be. That's why they moved it out of Orlando. The attendance was not good, et cetera, and put it on campuses. And so at the end of 2017, because I went down to Southern, I was down there with the ESPN executives. There was going to be a decision whether to keep the game or not, because we now have the Celebration Bowl. And so, myself in conjunction with we went to the conferences with the proposal that says, hey, we want to move the game to Atlanta. And I could talk to ESPN about doing that. Give me 3 years. If we don't turn it around in 3 years, you have to do what you have to do.
Wow.
But let me bring it to Atlanta. We're going to hook it to the Celebration Bowl. That wasn't a novel idea. I learned that from Gary Stoken, who's my counterpart. He runs the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and now the Athletic Kickoff game. He was the first guy to introduce these early kickoff games with Chick-fil-A. So it used to be the Chick-fil-A Kickoff and the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. So again, talking to Gary over the years, and I went to Gary and said, hey, Gary, I have this opportunity. Talk to me about how you do what you do. And so he was gracious enough to tell me how he blended sponsors and how he made everything work, how he did his team selections, the whole 9 yards. And so year one, it was kind of a last minute, but year one, we had North Carolina Central was already slated to be in it. And so we, trying to find a matchup, called my friend Ashley Robinson, who was at Prairie View, and said, Ashley, I got this opportunity. At that point, the game was played on Sunday of Labor Day weekend.
Right. I remember that.
It was also played at 1:00 in the afternoon. So it was hot.
It was hot. Yep.
So Ashley agreed. So we were able to put a game together. In that first year, Prairie View won. They beat North Carolina Central, but the attendance was small. It was, I think we had 8,000 people, something like that. My first year having it and trying to now put sponsors into it. But the second year, I have to Ashley Robinson again. He was now at Jackson State, and I called him up and said, "Hey, man, would you be interested in playing in this game?" And it was Jackson State against Bethune-Cookman, who was in the MEAC at the time.
Right.
And that year, because now I've had a year to connect sponsors to the game. Now I've had a year to convince ESPN we need to move this game off of 1:00, put it later in the afternoon. They did move it down to like 4 in the afternoon. Still hot, but we got a 4:00 time slot. And so that game was a turning point, and I'm always indebted to Ashley for 2 times helping me out. And we had a lot of success with that game because Jackson State fans, they come, and so we sold that game out. Bethune-Cookman, because they were here, so we had 2 great bands, and we really sold the bands around that. And Atlanta's a big band city,
right?
And then we priced the tickets low so we could get a lot of people make it affordable. So after that, then year 3, we were starting to cook with gas, and that's how. And by 2021, we didn't have the game in 20, but 2021 we convinced ESPN to move it to week 0. And that year, because there was where we were was getting crowded. When the MEAC SWAC Challenge started, they were the only college game played on the Sunday of Labor Day weekend. That back in 2005. But by now there was 5 or 6 games on that same day. And when you looked at week 0, there was no competition over there. And so ESPN agreed, along with the conferences, which was important. The conference partners agreed. We moved it to week 0. And on 2021, we had College Game Day here. We had Good Morning America here. We had First Take here. We had College Football Live here, etc. It was a big thing. And why? Because those assets were not being used in week 0.
Right.
So ESPN could send College Game Day. And they put a lot of resources behind that game at that point. Skycam. We have 7 or 8 cameras at that game, etc. So it then began to grow. And as of, then we moved it into prime time in 2023. Saturday at 7:30 p.m. And then
on ABC, right?
Then it went to ABC. It was on
Right.
ESPN. It went from ESPN to ESPN. ESPN 2. We got it to ESPN.
Yep.
And then in 2023, it went to ABC.
ABC, yeah.
And that's when it took off when it went to ESPN after the College Game Day. But when it went to ABC, it hit the stratosphere. And what I mean by that, Ken, is in 2023 and 2024, the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge was the second most watched game played on that day among 7 games. The most watched game was played 2023 with Notre Dame and Air Force in Ireland. And the second most watched game was MEAC SWAC Challenge. Last year, the most watched was Georgia State, Florida State in Ireland. So, and the next watch was MEAC SWAC Challenge. So the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge was the most watched game played on American soil on week 0.
Wow. And
I want to take a moment to let that soak in, because FCS, Division 1A, HBCUs have the most watched game played in America on the Saturday of week 0.
Say that again for the people in the back, John. Say it again.
That that 2 HBCU conferences.
Yep.
Division FCS, Football Championship Subdivision.
Yep.
Have the most watched game played on American soil to open the college football season on week 0, Saturday of week 0. The other games aren't even close.
Yeah. Right. Look, John, brother, this was, pardon me, I don't want to necessarily call it a masterclass, but there's a lot of value in what was presented. And I appreciate you taking the time, man, to educate us on this, because again, as I told you, I didn't necessarily want to make this a conversation about X's and O's, but as much as it is about, for me, my thing has always been that, the best type of fan is an educated fan. And while we obviously support our schools, we do whatever we can, and we cheer for the teams and we want them to win and so forth. I think sometimes there's a segment of us that still don't necessarily appreciate or maybe even realize the pain, the challenges that administrators, whether it be a coach, an athletic director, a college president, even someone in your particular position who is an HBCU graduate, who is an advocate for HBCUs, working within the confines in which you're working with. And I just look at the MEAC SWAC Challenge and the Celebration Bowl is kind of like the perfect mix when you put in consideration the executive director is an HBCU graduate, the schools involved are HBCUs, even the announcers on TV are HBCU graduates. And people may say that doesn't matter. I'm here to tell you it matters. It matters. If you went to an HBCU, and I say this all the time, there are just certain nuances that those of us who attended these campuses, we can detect some things that individuals, and I'm not saying that, you can have an appreciation unless you just maybe work for one, but I'm just saying there's just certain nuances. We can see things that are just really authentic. So, John, I thank you, brother. Good luck in the MEAC SWAC Challenge. Not sure if I'll be there, but I will try to get there, depending on how my health is. But God bless you, brother, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for having me. But I'm going to say again to those that are watching and those that are listening, you need to get this book. And this is not just a plug for you. I'm reading this book, and I want to thank you for taking the time to write it, because there are things in here that you might think but you don't know. But it offers clarity, and it really describes the value of what HBCUs do. And I'll end with you on this, Ken. We have something in our HBCU culture that no other institution can have. And the connectivity around that, trust me, I'm in the spaces I hear a lot, John, you have something that we don't. And that's in when I say in the bowl spaces or the conversation they're having, they'll say, well, that doesn't really affect you. Well, no, it doesn't. Or a call I had with the chair of the board of bowl season this past week, he said, when you speak in the room, everybody seems to listen. You're thoughtful, and which I tried to be, but God is good to us.
Mm-hmm.
He's good to all of us, and I'm just thankful that He has provided an opportunity even today to share, that you give me to share that with you. And I'm thankful again that you took the time, whatever was put in your spirit, to write this book. And I know it took time and effort and a lot of whatever it took for you to write it. It had to be written, and now it's up to us to get it and see the insights that you have presented here. Some clarity on some things, names that I didn't know. But I know that we stand on some huge shoulders, and what people had to go through to get us where we are today could never be forgotten. So thank you.
Thank you, brother. Where's Chris Stevens when you need him? Okay, guys. So look, man, this is we are at the end of this live stream. Look, you guys know we are in need of some financial support. You can go to donate at HBCU Sports at hbcusports.com/donate. We do have the ability to accept the payments by Zelle at donate@hbcusports.com. Follow us on Facebook at Real Sports, Instagram, and at HBCU_sports on all of the social media platforms. And I can't do this like Chris Stevens does. But anyway, thank you guys for taking an opportunity to take in this podcast. John, thank you so much, sir. And guys, until next time, God bless you.